the man is superhuman. And I think if you look at what he accomplished in 8 years, and you step back and look at it from what people will say 50 years from now, I think it's hard to argue that he was going to go down as one of the great presidents of the United States. So he's going to be here in just a couple minutes, so I don't get to do the actual introduction, but let me say this, that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chelsea Clinton, former Denver Mayor Wellington Webb, and President Bill Clinton.
So join me, those of you to the left that are ready to hear Bill Clinton, let's let him hear it. Those of you on the right that want to hear Bill Clinton, raise your hand. Those of you in the middle that want to hear Bill Clinton, let's give Bill Clinton a Colorado welcome. The former President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Give Mayor Webb a hand. And I want to thank our daughter Chelsea for being here, the best politician in our family. A lot of you have seen it. Thank you, Wellington Webb, for being my friend for so many years. You and your wife, Wilma, who served in our administration and has a little bronchitis tonight. That's why she's not here. I'd like to thank Hillary's great friend and steadfast supporter, Congressman Greg Meeks from New York, who spoke here earlier, a great spokesperson. Your representative in Congress, Diana DeGette, who is a big supporter of Hillary's. I'd like to thank her Colorado legislative supporters, Speaker Andrew Romanoff, Majority Leader Ken Gordon, Majority Leader Alice Madden in the House, the Assistant House Minority Leader Michael Garcia, and Senator Paula Sandoval. Give them all a big hand. I want to thank the Hispanic Leadership Council and Mayor John Hickenlooper, thank you. Now, I'm going to show you what makes American politics interesting. What are you screaming about? Let him talk. Are you one of those that was an inside job, guys? Well, let me tell you something. The great thing, first, Hillary agrees we should end the war. But we've heard from you now. Now you hear from me. I'll let you be rude and interrupt me. Scream at the top of your lungs. "9/11 was not an inside job. It was an Osama bin Laden job with 19 people from Saudi Arabia. They murdered 3,000 Americans and other farmers, including over 200 other Muslims. And we look like idiots, folks, denying that the people who murdered our fellow citizens did it when they are continuing to murder people all around the world. So we heard from you. You go away." Now, let's talk about America. Let's talk about our future. Let's talk about what you can do to make sure that the 21st century is the most exciting time in human history, the most peaceful time in human history, and the most prosperous time in human history. Why? You know what I like? The more the rest of us tell him we don't want to hear any more from him, and we didn't come to hear from him, the more he screams. So, let me ask you something. Thank you. You know, let me tell you something. Wait a minute. One of the reasons you ought to be for Hillary for president, since this has been brought up, is that she passed bipartisan legislation in the Senate to take care of all those firemen and police officers that got sick because of 9/11. She helped. You talk to the victims of 9/11, the people that had a dozen surgeries just so they could go back and their bodies could work again, and ask them whether they think it was an inside job or whether they're glad they had a senator like Hillary Clinton who'd stand up and give them a chance to start their lives over again. And the reason I say this is this really brings me to the point I wanted to make tonight. You got to decide, after an exciting Democratic election with lots of good candidates, 7 I liked. Has this been a great election or what? You didn't have to be, really, we haven't had to be against anyone, have we? We haven't had to scream at the top of our lungs and call people names. I liked them all, didn't you? And how exciting is it? Now we're going to make history. We're going to have the first woman nominee of the Democratic Party or the first African-American nominee of the Democratic Party. We're going to make history. Our party. We had the first serious Hispanic candidate for president this time who did very well. Our party breaks down barriers and brings people together. So, what you have to decide is who would be the best president. And you have to decide that based on what you want America to do and what you believe the skills of a president should be. So let me tell you what my case is. First of all, we live in an interdependent world where we cannot escape each other. And all over the world, you see 3 big problems that the young people here have doubtless thought about. You see persistent and growing inequality in incomes, in education, in health care. It's terrible in America, and it's bad around the world. Secondly, you see insecurity, terror, the spread of dangerous weapons. And thirdly, you see instability because of the reality of global warming. That's why Al Gore got the Nobel Prize, because it is a real problem. Now, if you look at America today, people are worried about going into a recession. They're worried about this subprime mortgage crisis, a big problem in Colorado, where you got all these innocent people that got home mortgages. They just ask one question: can I make the mortgage payment? Right? And then the people that gave them the mortgages, turned out they sold a bunch of them in a package off to investors who turned them into stocks, and people bid against the mortgages and bid them down. So now millions of innocent Americans are facing foreclosures. It costs you $250,000 every time, as a society, a house is foreclosed on. So we need somebody to deal with that. 90% of the benefits of this economic recovery, 90% in the last 7 years, have gone to the top 10% of earners. Half of that to the top 1%, a bunch of that to the top 1/10 of 1%. The cost of health care is double. The cost of a college education is virtually double. The cost of energy and housing has gone up. Last year, for the first time in 20 years, the cost of food has gone up at twice the rate of inflation. We are now seeing, for the first time in over 15 years, people making choices every week between food and medicine. There is persistent and searing inequality in your country. That's not America at its best. We've got more and more young people who think they can't go to college. In the United States today, a kid who graduates in the top 25% of his or her high school class, but whose family's in the bottom 25% of income, doesn't have as good a chance to finish a 4-year college on time is someone who graduates in the bottom 25% income, but is in the bottom 25% of the class, but it's in the top 25% of income. Now think what that means. That's not America. That's not good for any of us, that we're going to cut people off before they can fulfill their God-given potential. So Hillary says, if you elect me president, I'm worried about all these things, and I'm really upset that more than half the world seems to be mad at us. And I know it's got something to do with Iraq, but it's way more than Iraq. It's walking away from the climate change treaty. It's walking away from comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty. It's walking away from the International Criminal Court. It's walking away from the Geneva Convention on Human Rights. It's walking away, walking away. So how do you pick a president in this environment? So full of promise, so full of problems. How do you pick a president? Here's my argument for her. 3 arguments. Argument number 1, she's got the right vision, and she believes from experience that the only way you ever get past politics and unify the country is to get people to work on big things together. What are we going to work on together? Number 1, we have to rebuild the middle class dream in America and give poor people an honest chance to work their way into it. Number 2, what does that mean? Affordable health care for all Americans. Stop making excuses that we cannot solve a problem every other country has solved. If you believe this election is about whether our children and grandchildren will have a better future when the president quits than when the president starts, if you believe this election is about whether the world will be coming together instead of being torn apart when the next president quits as opposed to when the next president starts, then you have to elect the best president. Hillary would be the best president. I urge you to be there for her. Thank you, and God bless you.